Okay, good afternoon. After a great session in the morning, I think we're looking forward to the conversation this afternoon. And I hope you had a good break, good lunch. Certainly on my end, the food was good. So let's continue with the business of the day. We are now going to have a mayor's roundtable looking at the financing of local government, the financing of cities. I think we've already started that conversation with the keynote address this morning from the executive mayor of the city of Cape Town. And we're very fortunate that we also have mayors from elsewhere that are going to reflect on the topic. And this conversation is going to be facilitated by Mr. Leopold Boroma. And Leopold, is here just right, my immediate left. I'm just looking at his bio here, it's quite long, but there's a very specific one that interests me the most, which is not included in his bio here. He is an ASD alumni, which is, I think we can get used to that. Offered a life-changing opportunity to him. So I hope that the ASD for the fifth group will also have similar implications. Leopold is the project manager of CLGF Zimbabwe. If you look at his CV, you will see that he has been active in Zimbabwe and in other African countries, including South Sudan and many others. He has worked for the Public Service Commission in Zimbabwe. So he's well-grounded on matters of local government and broader governance issues. So with that, I would advise and say that he is, I think, the right person to facilitate the conversations on mayors. He often works with mayors in Zimbabwe and elsewhere. And CLGF, as you can see, is one of our partners, providing funding, providing technical advice to the African School on Decentralisation. So with that, let's give a round of applause to Leopold.
Thank you very much, Prof. I believe in the theory of diffusion, which is linked to devolution and decentralization. I also assume that by being close to the professors, by that theory of devolution, decentralization, diffusion, some of the knowledge might also gravitate towards me. So, without putting so much struggle. So if you see me hanging around professors, it's simply for that purpose, that by mere luck and chance, I might have the same knowledge, you know. And like he said, I happened to be part of the ASD group. I find this session this school, very, very important. It gives you a better understanding of local government, theoretical concepts, and then marrying them with the practice, because you are talking about what is happening practically in local government in Africa and across the world, the challenges and the solution that can be provided. So I took the school seriously, read seriously. I never enjoyed myself in Cape Town. Read seriously in the past. So I hope you are also going to do the same. One or two glasses of wine is not necessarily not taking school seriously. So you can partake in those other activities, just a glass of wine, but not other, economic activities that might be found in Cape Town. With me here, I have the mayor from Kachinga, the city in Zambia, in Muchinga, the northern part of Zambia. She is a lady, young, energetic, and striving to provide good leadership in Zambian local authorities. She will be here to help us understand the dynamics of intergovernmental relations and the transfers, which is something that has been touched, how it's impacting local authorities in Zambia. We also have the acting mayor of one of the cities in Zimbabwe, the city of Mutare, Mayor Jeffrey Nyamana. The city of Mutare is one of the CLGF project flagship. We worked with them when things were down. They invested a lot of effort in redefining their public finance management system to the extent that right now it's the most performing city in Zimbabwe with unqualified audits, with a significant increase in revenue collection because they adopted a public finance management system and also adopted an ERP that was designed by CLGF and particularly designed by me and gave the concept to the university, one of our universities, the Harare Institute of Technology. They designed an ERP which we call LADS, Local Authorities Digital System. So if you guys want an ERP that is working, customs designed for local authorities, we can have a conversation. Thank you. So today, we are going to be dealing with one of the critical subjects that is at the heart of CLGF project intervention, the public finance management system. How do we make our local authorities financially sustainable? We are going to hear the practical interventions from the mayors. But before I give it to the mayors to give a political spin to it, I can also give a bit of, since it's a school and a university, a reputable university, there is no way we can start this session without jumping a little bit into theory, because then it won't be an academic school. One of the key concept that is driving, that CLGF is using to help local authorities to be sustainable, to deliver the right quality and quantity of services, is to ensure that local authorities are financially sustainable. And financial sustainability, sometimes it's reduced to revenue collection without looking at the broader intergovernmental relations and the decentralization framework, which is very important for this school, which is very important for this. That's where the financial sustainability starts from. One of the key theories that we should look at and that we have used as CLGF is proper fiscal federalism. There is a difference to me between fiscal decentralization and fiscal federalism, because we tend to do fiscal decentralization where central government decides what to give to local authorities, what to, the cash, the actual cash to give, or the responsibility to decentralize, and the collection to decentralize. Yet fiscal federalism, from the constitution, from the foundation, from the state formation, you clearly define revenue sources that go to each level of government. Once we do that, we are guaranteeing a local authority or a subnational structure of financial sustainability because their revenue sources are clearly defined. But when we move from that, as COGF, we say, yes, that can be guaranteed. But we also connected in that, I think the mayor of Cape Town mentioned that, money comes from the economy. So, if we are to talk of financial sustainability, we also have to talk about local economic development. What is the local economy from which the money comes from? There is a tendency of clearly defining financial responsibilities in the Constitution, in the Acts, but we don't go to the economic base and say, is there any money to be collected? Yes, we can give you 1,000 revenue sources, but that does not make a city or a local authority financially sustainable unless that source has something in it. I can give you a very nice safe, but if there is no cash, or a wallet, if there's no cash in it, it's equally useless. So the issue of the economy becomes very, very important as we connect, as we make local authorities financially sustainable. We once worked with, supported a local authority in Zimbabwe, to give you an example. Designed a proper local economic framework and everything, only to discover that their main sources of revenue was shop licenses. And the whole district had only 25 shops. So how when there is absolutely nothing in your main source of revenue, how are you going to be financially sustainable even if the laws, the systems and everything is properly defined? So that's why the importance of looking at the economic base. Apart from the economic base, we also have to look at the revenue sources. What are the revenue sources for the local authority? Is it properly defined? Where are they collecting from? And what are the collection mechanisms? One of the key challenges that we face is that the local authority is the only institution that have to negotiate the price of a service with the recipients. Who in here has ever negotiated their income tax with the Central Revenue Authority? Huh? Who has ever negotiated your income tax with SARS, with Zambia Revenue Authority, with your revenue authorities? Or when they garnish your account, do they come and negotiate that, you know what, let's agree, we'll negotiate a quota? But with the local authority, you have to sit down and negotiate a tariff. Is that not true? And people will say, we cannot afford it. So, how do you want a loaf of bread when you can afford a half a loaf? So when you negotiate a tariff, does the local authority go and negotiate with their providers that our residents cannot afford this tariff, this water tariff? Therefore, the major chemical company must also lower their tariffs, the price of their services by half. It's not, isn't it? So what we are saying, the moment we negotiate a tariff, we are inadvertently negotiating the quantity and quality of that service. So it means we are undercutting revenue by negotiating that tariff without also looking at the cost structure. So the issue of revenue sources and how we collect matters in making sure our local authorities are financially sustainable. You as advisors of local authorities, these are some of the issues that you must go and be dealing with. And then Thirdly, which I'm not going to touch much because it's going to be touched a lot, the policy and legal framework has to be strengthened to make sure that it's supportive of financial sustainability of local authorities. Because local authorities cannot collect without a proper legal framework. So if the legal framework and policy framework is weak, it also means we are weakening local authorities financially. And then we also have to look into the demographic factors. If we are to make a local authority financially sustainable, there has to be people, the demographics come into place. I was listening, I heard people saying there is most governments have fiscal transfer frameworks that are based on a formula with fundamentals. But the problem with that formula is that, are we going to be funding those fundamentals with the intergovernmental fiscal transfers, or we just use those fundamentals to get the money and use it for something else? If you are saying we got poor people, so we need intergovernmental fiscal transfers to cover poverty, will the local authority be using that money for that poverty, or they will use it to buy their Mercedes-Benz and something else? So how do we connect the intergovernmental fiscal transfer framework, the formula, with the funding? Are we going to fund those fundamentals? If we are going to receive a lot of money because of these fundamentals, are we going to put it to those issues, or we are going to put it to something else? So that has to also be looked into seriously as we define the formulas and the fiscal transfers. So then, without getting into much, then there is what we call the institutional factors. Most of our local authorities are weak, both in terms of the budgeting, the knowledge, the capacity to budget, the capacity to collect, the capacity to manage the funds. Digital systems. We are weak on digital systems. Is it not true that most of our local authorities are on manual systems? Now, if you are on manual systems, how do you know and quantify your revenue sources? Because the quantity of your revenue sources and potential revenue will make you determine your budget correctly. It will make you determine what I call, or what, not me, what I've read as fiscal capacity. Because a local authority has to determine its fiscal capacity in order to determine the budget and the tariffs and everything. Now, we had a local authority that was collecting 600,000 US dollars per year. And what are you going to do with $600,000 per year? If I become a pastor, I might be able to collect more than that local authority per year. Is that not true? So what we are saying is, yet, upon analysis, their fiscal capacity was 25 billion, not million. They were collecting 600,000. Their fiscal capacity, if you calculate it, was 25 billion. So that disconnection between your fiscal capacity in terms of the resources and economic base of that local authority. They were a rich local authority, but very poor. You see, it's like having a homeless person who has got a rich estate that their grandfather left them, but they are homeless in Cape Town. So we just need to connect them with their inheritance and they become rich. So the issue of correctly determining the capacity to correctly determine your fiscal capacity, collect, and then put in management instruments that will enable you to collect and manage that revenue. It matters. Lastly, I think most of you have sent emails to your local authority. I said, I'm following up on an email that I have sent. And I was told in answer, no, we have not yet printed the email so that we can give it to the permanent secretary or the town clerk to sign. I said, but what's the purpose? If I send you an email, then you print it and put it in front of somebody else. That's when a COGF, one day, as the COGF manager, one day sitting in a plane from US to Zimbabwe, I said, can we not have a proper ERP that will enable local authorities to manage themselves, a custom-made ERP? I wrote down, software development in the plane, called somebody from HIT and said, we want to develop this ERP, code this into a proper ERP. It's working in Zimbabwe. City of Mutare will tell you there are more than 72 local authorities that are already using that digital instrument. And it's helping in terms of revenue collection, it's helping in terms of accountability, it's helping in terms of connecting with the citizens. So I won't talk much, I've done enough. Also as an aspiring pastor, because that's the easiest way of getting rich in Africa. So I have to learn how to preach. I think I have preached enough about local government financial sustainability. Let me leave it to the practitioners to give us their experience. Let me start with Acting Mayor Jeffrey Nyamana from Mutare to give us the practical experience and the leadership experience on what they did in Mutare to help develop a sustainable public finance management system, the challenges that they are facing, the solutions, and then their future prospect. Councillor Nyamana.
Thank you, Mr. Boroma. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues, delegates, and partners. Like you heard Mr. Boroma speak, my name is Councillor Jeffrey Nyamana. I'm representing the mayor of the city of Mutare because he's attending to some other important issues. He traveled earlier to Japan. Let me tell our Mutare story so that maybe you'll get to appreciate why despite the fact that we have not yet reached where we wanted to be, but we are happy that we are moving in the right direction. Like any other city in Zimbabwe, Mutare was faced with numerous challenges, financial challenges, mismanagement, and lack of accountability, to a point where we could not produce audited accounts when we had a backlog of 5 years. So, as Mutare, we are very happy with the support that we got from CLGF to develop the ERP that he has spoken about. We are actually working in collaboration with the Harare Institute of Technology, and we provided them with some space. The lab that is producing those softwares is actually housed at our civic center in the city of Mutare. And this has helped us. Before you can actually move on to tell the progress that we have managed to get to, it is very important to just give you an insight of how bad things were. And around 2019 and before, we were only being able to collect 33% of our billing. This made it very difficult for us to meet our obligations. It means that staff were not getting paid, and the city had salary arrears of running into a number of years. And you know, when you are not paying your staff, it leads to very poor morale. The staff won't be motivated. And if you see people continuously coming to work without getting salaries, what do you think will be happening? It means there's also lots of pilferage that will be taking place. If you are able to give them some working tools, you see those working tools goes missing because they have to find a way to put food on the table. So we were faced with also maladministration in council land. That is even at levels where you expect discipline to be enforced, meaning even the highest officials were participating in some short deals, and a lot of land was lost. The governance structure was also very poor, meaning even when you put something, even something that is nice amongst the rotten things, the chances are that that thing is will soon also be corrupted. So even elected officials were actually participating in some of the things that made governance very difficult. And you know, if you are the one who is supposed to be the custodian of the law and you are breaking it, it means we have a crisis. We also had a backlog of statutory obligations, that is, like I alluded to, salaries, even taxes. We had arrears with the taxmen running into about 5 years. So let me now go on to our transformation. There were some strategic actions that we took with the help of CLGF. We implemented the local authorities digital system, which is a comprehensive platform, and we together with the HIT we have developed 47 modules that are assisting us in our procurement, in our land management, in our stores and inventory, as well as voucher management and tracking. We were having very serious issues with the Auditor General most of the time because vouchers will go missing. Even some land files will go missing. Even fuel and fleet management, it becomes very difficult when you do it manually because it's very easy to lose a piece of paper, or even for someone who would have done something to come in and steal the piece of paper and you are left with no information. So this has helped to transform the city. Another issue is that our ratepayers, I think the poor collection, the reason why we are collecting poorly, when you cannot account for what you get for 5 years, who would want to give you money? So Can you hear me?
Yes.
So our ratepayers, a good number of them were no longer paying because they lost trust in their local authority. So what we then did to try and restore confidence, from 2020, we then developed a system where we engage with our stakeholders. We then formed what we call a multi-stakeholder committee. And working together, that's a local solution. Working together with that stakeholder committee, we started doing our budgets in an inclusive manner. We'll consult in that multi-stakeholder fora. There are all groups that we identify within our city. That is sporting groups, religious groups, residents association, every sector, including some important government departments. They are represented in that multi-stakeholder committee. So we started doing things together, and some significant steps were also taken to make sure that the road that was at Civic Center is dealt with. I think you know what it means. And then we went on a process of recruiting new people. And we are happy to tell you that from the 5-year backlog that we were behind in our financial reports, we are now up to date. And like Mr. Boroma alluded to earlier, we are getting good reports from the Auditor General. We had also abdicated on our work, on our obligation to make sure that we manage schools that belong to the local authority, and also construction of more schools. But I'm happy to tell you that right now, every year we are building a new school, and we are not just building it from nowhere. We are now informed by data. Everything that we do is informed by data, and we make sure that we put those facilities where they are needed most. This has in turn improved our relationship with our residents. So from a collection efficiency of 33%, we are now hovering around 70%. And we want to improve until maybe we have a figure nearer to 100% or 100%. We believe it is possible. So we have made significant infrastructural progress after implementing the large system. We are now also using digital information systems, that is GIS, to make sure that we map our city, and that has helped us to rate correctly. Before that, some houses were undervalued and some didn't even appear in our system. So we had houses where people were free riders, they were not paying rates, but they were enjoying and drawing benefits from the work that is being done by the municipality. So the digital system that we employed made sure that we are now using accurate data, even in our budgeting and also even in making decisions. Before that, we had even some leases that were expiring and nothing taking place. People continued. Some of the leases were 50-year-old, and people were paying $1 or less per year, and nothing was taking place because everything was manual, and you know what it is to try and shift through a pair of papers. So our revenues have improved significantly, and before the time that we had and for taking our transformation journey, there was a time when the city did not have even a single ambulance. And for a city the size of Mutare, we had only 4 refuse, 3, not 4, 3 refuse trucks. Meaning that we were very collecting refuse, and you know what it means in terms of health in our communities. But we have moved from having only 3 refuse trucks to having 14. There was a health risk disaster that was declared in Harare, and we were helping with some of our trucks because what we really need in our city is 11, but we have more than sufficient. We also had most areas that had some sewer flowing because our system was old and we had no capacity from the collection of 33% to do repairs or even to recommission the pipes. But right now we can safely say Mutare is a very good environment which is free of sewer flowing. I know for people in Cape Town or maybe in some of the cities, it's something that can surprise them where you take this as a milestone. But before that, or if you have visited most cities in Zimbabwe currently, most of them have got sewer flowing in the streets. But you don't find that in Mutare anymore. We have a clean environment. Even in our disaster and risk management efforts, we have greatly significantly improved, and we run an efficient fire brigade system. We understand that the health at the world standard that a car should, a fire engine should reach a place after receiving a call is around 15 minutes. But we have reduced hours due to decentralized fire systems to about 8 minutes. We are also the only city in Mutare with a fire ladder. We are the 3rd largest city, but we're the only one that is a fire ladder. So that is part of the story from Mutare, and we are still employing other methods and researches to make sure that our city comes to optimum performance. Of course, there are challenges, but because of what we have employed in our city, we are facing those challenges, and significant progress is being made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, City of Mutare, for that. I think we have opportunity to ask him questions and clarifications on various interventions that they have been able to undertake. I can also help him answer some of the questions because partly although it was the intervention of the city, the strategies that they took, the political leadership, but they are part of the support that we provided that I can also help with. Now we want to move on to get another experience from the lady mayor on how did we connect our local authorities with our central government in terms of intergovernmental transfers. How is it working in Zambia? We're debating most local authorities in Africa are dependent on central government revenue. I think that's why this school becomes very important, because we need to move away from that arrangement because it's affecting the autonomy of local authorities. I think Professor Yap mentioned that aspect clearly, that, and the mayor also from Cape Town mentioned that clearly, that it's then who is involved, who then makes decisions when those financial arrangements are in place. So we want to hear the mayor from Zambia helping us through what they are, what they've done and the impact of those intergovernmental relations and transfers on their financial sustainability. Mayor Kanuga.
Thank you so much, Leo. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, partners. I see we have a lot of professors, scholars. I was teasing with my own Elizabeth sitting right across the room. I have to put her on the spot to say I'm coming to speak decentralization to people that normally during conferences speak to us politicians on how we should implement decentralization. So I'm very, very delighted to be here, very excited, because I'll not be speaking as a scholar. I will be speaking as somebody who faces the challenges of fiscal decentralization in our local authority, not only in our local authority, but as a nation. I will reintroduce myself because very few times people get my name correct. I am Kanongwe Chota Kanyanyamina, currently serving as mayor of Kanchivia in the northern part of our country, which is Muchinga province, the newest province in the country. I have also been given the honor to serve as the vice president of the Association of Zambia. I think I'm sitting here today because I sit as the steering committee member for the Commonwealth Youth, and hence because of these global networks, I was given the honor and privilege to come and share the part that Zambia is playing and how far we've been able to come. I'll try to be very brief because I know I'm speaking to very like-minded people. I think when you speak of decentralization, I was very happy that from the beginning of this conversation, the School of Decentralization has noted that we cannot speak of democracy without decentralization. As a leader myself, I joined politics because I wanted to join politics where it matters the most. So I remember back at home, I had almost people persuade me into directly going to the National Assembly and just join politics at national level. But being realistic and being for what I stand for, I said, look, if we're going to change anything in our country, we need to go where it matters most. And politics shouldn't be about titles, it should be about service. Now, I understand in countries like South Africa, Kenya, local governance political level is actually higher than the National Assembly level. But then in our countries, and I want to believe it's the same context with Zimbabwe as well as Malawi, because I think I understand a little bit of the politics around local governance. Local governance is the governance that is closest to the people. And in Zambia, we have two tiers of governance. We have local governance and we have the central government. So the provincial administration is not a government for us. It's simply an administration block that administers central government's projects and basically central government's whatever the central government is doing, they do it through the provincial governments. So it's only local government and central governments. So the two governments are to work together to bring development in our country. In Zambia, we have 116 local authorities. So we have cities, we have municipal councils, and we have town councils. But most of our funding, so when you talk of physical decentralization, I think even before I talk of the context of Zambia, you will notice that because this is a continental issue, less than 20% of the public fund is managed by local governments, almost everywhere. You give examples of a few countries, but you will realize that it's less than 20% as compared to the over 40% in OECD countries. that gap speaks volumes. Because when you visit other countries and you notice that they have been given more fund than the fund that we are receiving. When we talk of the legal framework in Zambia, I will tell you that Zambia has a very strong legal framework when it comes to decentralization. Our constitution itself, we have what is called the Local Government Act, which is enshrined in the constitution. We have the National Decentralization Policy, which all affirm physical autonomy when it comes to local governance. But the reality is, in practice, we still face a huge gap between what the councils are expected to do and what we are actually funded to do. The principle of finance follows function, we are still struggling with that. In the past few years, Zambia has gone the devolution way, and a number of ministries have been devolved to our local authorities across the country. Some very big ministries, and I'll give an example of the Ministry of Health. For me, this is a ministry that comes with a lot of challenges. Because on top of what we were facing, now we have the Ministry of Health at the local authority. So almost all the challenges are now brought to the local authority. But at least the Ministry of Health comes with a certain level of funding. My issue for me comes with certain ministries like archives, transport, fisheries. These ministries are coming with very limited funding, and then we are expected almost to do the impossible, because as local authorities, like I said, our funding is almost entirely dependent on intergovernmental transfers. So I'll quickly just go through the funds that we receive as local authorities. The major fund that we receive as local authorities in Zambia is called the Local Equalization Fund, Local Government Equalization Fund. This is a fund that we normally use to run the daily administration of the councils. Now with this fund, we use this fund mainly to pay the workers, the operations, and when you look at it, the way the calculation is made also, I think local authorities from time immemorial have been complaining to central government that we need a formula that will make sure that when the formula is put in the system, it will look at the capacity of a local authority versus what they are generating. Now we're still struggling with some councils because the money that they're getting, the grant that is coming through the Local Equalization Fund, for some councils it's not even enough for them to administer their daily operations. So there is a huge gap with the Local Government Equalization Fund. It has remained stagnant for a while we have continuously faced inflation, the local government remains stagnant. We have increment in our wage bill while we receive constantly new employees. The Local Government Equalization Fund has remained constant. It's not growing. Everything else is growing, but it's not growing. And this is almost a fund that guarantees how quickly or how best services could be delivered to our people. Then we have a very famous fund in Zambia until very recently, because the government increased it tremendously. This is a fund we are calling the Constituency Development Fund. Now, with the Constituency Development Fund, we have seen that it has opened up participation incredibly when we talk of the local participation, that is from the local people themselves. It's also brought a lot of visibility, and it is also managed at constituency level. So it is fund that is, we hold it as local authorities, but the management is done at constituency level. So for me as a local authority leader, I will tell you that sometimes this fund, it's because it's managed by the constituents, and when I say constituents, the member of parliament is the torchbearer of this fund. So for me, in truth, I know the ward development committees are doing the submission and it goes through the CDF committee, but the priorities that sometimes that are agent as the local authority are not reflective because for me, I'm sitting as a local authority and we have a number of challenges, a number of service things that need to be delivered. But then we have a fund that is within the district, but that is managed by the constituents. And then all we have to do as a local authority is implement. So the mayors do not sit in the committee. And for me, just having that, we have been saying, then how do we implement projects that are not even as urgent as the actual issues that we are having? So that has been the challenge with the Constituents Development Fund. It's a brilliant initiative. It's almost at 2 million now, but it sometimes fragments local development. And the priorities and the council, basically, it's an oversight. We are just taken as an oversight. And then we have what we call the grants in lieu of rates. This is intended to compensate councils for properties that are exempted from taxation. Yet these payments are also often very inconsistent, they are unpredictable, and sometimes they can also be far below the real value of the lost revenue. So often when we expect to receive this money, sometimes it doesn't come when it should come. And then we have a budget that is planned, we need to implement this at this point in time. But then because we can also only do so much, central government receives and then we wait for it to come. And then we have other sector grants. So we've got for West, and then I think as a local authority where I'm coming from, because Kanchiria is quite still very rural, we receive the transport. We receive this transport grants. We receive fire. We receive sanitation, and then at the end of the day, often our challenge and our continuous lobbying with central government is the grants sometimes does delay. Sometimes we do get it in good time, but often it delays. And when it does delay, it affects our work. And now with the very grant that I was mentioning, and I should mention that even with local government, we do not equalization fund. We don't receive them annually. We receive them sometimes every 2 months and sometimes every other month. And then with the Constituents Development Fund, you need to write to request, because there was a tendency in the beginning where we were given monies as local authorities, and of course, it's not one size fits all. Some local authorities would implement quickly and others could not, and government thought it wise that it's important that they mop up our accounts and you only request, when you request, government gives you these funds. But then sometimes the funds do not come in good time. The plan is to receive these funds in 48 hours, but we've had situations where you receive this funding a month later when contractors are waiting to finish the implementation of various projects in various districts. So when we talk of, I'll give you another context. When we talk of our review, because now I was telling you about the grant, and then now we have fund that we are also raising as local authorities, which is revenue collection. So under revenue collection, I want to bring this discussion very close to the reality that we have back at home. So in Zambia, councils are required to generate their own source revenue to supplement government transfers. So traditionally, these funds include the business levies and trading licenses, market and bus station fees, billboard signages charges, property rates, permit for sand, charcoal, natural resources, extractions. We levy all that. Then now we have what we are calling the Business Regulatory Act and the creation of the Business Regulatory Revenue Agency, which is the BRRA. So this BRRA has basically centralized business licenses. So effectively taking away one of the key revenue resources for local authorities. I'll give a bit of context to that. So the intention initially was very good, because when this board was introduced, the intention was to reduce the red tape and make business easier. So the unintended effect has been to limit the physical independence of local councils. Now, I want to mention this. So in small adjustments to local fees, we always need to ask the BRRA to approve, okay? Now, for every time that we ask, that process for us as local authorities, it takes a lot of time, and it also discourages innovation on our part, because we have noted that as a negative effect, because we are the ones experiencing it. So what it also means that revenue, what also that means for us in our terms is that our revenues are becoming passive, they are becoming fixed, they are also quite restricted and dependent on transfers from the national level. Because previously we could just wake up and would say, what revenue base can we collect from? How much can we put? How much can we charge? But now we have a board that is regulating everything that we need to ask. Is this okay? Is this not okay? So by the time we are getting the approvals, we would have lost a lot of revenue as local authorities. And now we are saying what councils need are collectible revenues, flexible, locally generated, and tied to actual economic activities within the district. So as councils, we have also constantly said that we are not constantly asking for charity, but what we are also asking for is a conducive policy space, one that will allow us to collect what is due for us from our own jurisdictions. So I'm very happy that we actually have 3 Zambians attending this year, because I want to believe that by the time they're graduating, certain policies may be implemented back at home, because this is a reality of what local authorities are facing. Our revenue sources have also been squeezed sometimes. What we're calling for often is not passive income, but we want collectible revenue, income we can generate through active local participation designed around our local economies, because only when local authorities can collect can decentralization truly deliver. So when we look at the realities of the policy gaps, we are also saying that we have a little bit of a gap when it comes with physical decentralization, because local authorities now collect less than 10% of our potential, because we are constrained because of what I mentioned. Sometimes the laws are not supporting us. And then when you talk of administrative bottlenecks, councils wait months for clearance to revise fees, delaying reforms and revenue growth. I think I've already spoken about this and I gave enough content to read. And then when you talk of the impact on service delivery, what this is doing also is that it has reduced OSR, directly affects waste management, road maintenance, and support to local enterprises, the very services residents associate with local governance. Because for us, every time people see we are not collecting the waste, we are not doing road maintenance, we are not supporting the local enterprises, the blame always comes to the local authorities. People barely understand that we are also incapacitated, and because we are sometimes collecting revenue from people, even if we walk to a shop and we collect a small amount, those people that are paying these taxes are expecting us to be on top of our game. And when we can't, we lose trust with the community, and the community shun to pay these taxes. So when we continue to speak of, because I'm always a very hopeful person, when we talk of innovation and hope, and how we are building our own revenues, I'm not going to just limit this to Zambia. I've quoted other examples. So even within very limited space, we should talk of the good things that have been able to be done, because it's not all bad. But I needed to give you the negative side, so because I know I'm speaking to scholars, and we hope that at the end of the day, we'll be able to get solutions to what we call problems, and we want to believe that sitting in this room are big brains, and that's why you're sitting in this room. I should actually congratulate all of you for sitting in this room, and we are hopeful that you give us the solutions that we have been waiting for. So even with the very limited space, local innovation continues to shine. I'll give you practical examples before I give you the practical example that we have been able to do in Kanchibia, where I'm coming from. I'll give an example of Lusaka, which is the capital of Zambia. Lusaka City has introduced a smart city system, which has digitalized payments to reduce leakages, just like what our moderator had earlier mentioned. I should also mention that recently he visited Zambia, and all local authorities met in Mansa, and CRGF had sponsored a conference or a workshop where they were encouraging all the 116 local authorities in Zambia to go the digital way. And even before that, Lusaka has already gone the digital way. Not only Lusaka is doing that, we also have a city called Chipata in Zambia, which has also gone cashless, and this has tremendously improved transparency as well as accountability. We have Andola as well as Kitwe, who've also recently started using the mobile platforms to automate levies. Those are brilliant innovations that are coming on board, and you can see that the councils that have gone this way have tremendously increased their revenue base. When we talk of across Africa, I think we can all agree from our colleagues coming from Kenya that Kisumu has also increased their revenue base by over 35% in the last 2 years because they integrated revenue management system. When we talk of Kigali, as well in Rwanda, finances infrastructure through land value capture and tourism levies have also been introduced. And then we should have been with the mayor from Etequini, right here in South Africa, who are also using municipal bonds as well as service-based tariffs under strong public finance management system. So these are examples of what African cities across Africa have been able to do and are excelling. In Kanchibia, one of the biggest challenges we had was most of our business people were not registered business people, so they were doing illegal business. So it was very difficult for us as local authorities to legalize their businesses and then tax them. The moment we tax them, we legalize something that is wrong. So what we did is we wrote to institutions and agencies that do the registration of businesses, and then we sensitized our people and we moved across the entire district to make sure that people that are doing businesses are registered. And then we began to levy them because now they are registered and they are legal. So that has also helped us increase our revenue base as a local authority. So now when we talk of the balance between transfers and own revenues, transfers mostly ensure that there is fairness, that the citizens everywhere access their basic service needs. And that's why they are very important. We can't do without them, because truly today we learned that Cape Town, the budget for Cape Town is 70% on revenue collection. That is amazing. I'm glad I sat in this room and I listened to that, because just wow. Almost 80% of our budget is coming from intergovernmental transfers, because we don't have the revenue base that a metropolitan council like Cape Town does. However, for us, we are still saying we can't do away, smaller councils especially, and I'll speak on behalf of the smaller councils. It's almost impossible for us to run our councils without the transfers. We need the transfers so that we can then give service to our people. And we're very, very grateful, because I think government has been able to do that through the various funding that I mentioned, especially the Constituency Development Fund. It's cuts across the board. All local authorities through the constituencies receive the same amount annually. So that at least then brings about fairness and equity across the board. Then when we talk of our own revenue base, so our own revenue builds accountability, because then, like I mentioned, when citizens pay, they demand results. And then if they are demanding results because they paid, even if it's $1 that they paid to the council, they want to see their dollar work. So it's also very important for citizens to know that we as local authorities depend on them for service. And then we as local authorities also, we are kept on our toes because we know that if we do not work, our people are not going to be happy. Our people are not going to be happy, and we need to make sure that we do what we are supposed to do. Now, I'm being reminded of time, so I'll just cut through. So the way forward, I had written a few pointers that you may look at as you remain for the next 2 weeks, I want to believe. To make fiscal decentralization real and not just rhetoric, it's very important, obviously, I'll speak for my office, that as mayors, it's very important that we champion fiscal dialogue to ensure that councils are part of national budget conversations. And maybe this is something you can also pick. Instead of constantly receiving a share, it's important that local authorities are also put as part of the budget processing by national government. It's also important that institutionalized local revenue policies are strengthened bylaws and accountability. It's important, just like our moderator mentioned, that we need to digitalize, all of us as local authorities actually need to go the digital way. If we need to go the e-payment way if we are going to raise as much revenue as possible. I'm happy that he mentioned that this is something that has been rolled out to 72 municipalities in Zimbabwe. We hope as the Local Government Association of Zambia to learn and see how best we can also implement, and hoping that the countries represented here and beyond Africa could also learn how the digital platform has been made in Zimbabwe. We also need to make sure that we enhance credit worthiness, we pursue clean audits, and explore green and municipal bonds as well. I'm happy that this is a conversation that is going to be spoken about, I think, quickly from now. What is also important, as somebody who represents the association at home, I see the need for us to promote peer learning. I think if we want to go so far, it's very important that we realize that as Africa, we are only going to achieve that which we cry for if we hold our hands. There is a proverb back at home that we say, a child who never moves or never goes anywhere will always praise the mother's cooking. So it's important for us to do peer learning, associations from one association to the other. We could have the city networks that are already coexisting. CLGF could also obviously act as an instrumental organization to facilitate these peer learnings, because today I live as an informed person. I live with so much learning. I think I read somewhere that the only room that is never full is a room for improvement. We thought we are doing so well, and then we come here and wow, I feel like, oh, are we 25 years behind? But then also you hear from somewhere else, from another country, you're like, oh, no, we are actually doing so well. So it's very important to always remind ourselves and to always learn and to unlearn certain things that we are doing. So as I close, I would like to mention that fiscal decentralization is not just about resources, it's also about restoring trust and dignity in local governance. Because when you move on the streets and you ask people, what is your council doing? Other people will tell you, what is the council in itself? People have a huge misconception about local governance, and it's very important that even as we talk of fiscal decentralization, it comes with restoring the trust and dignity. We also, it's important that if we truly believe in the SDGs, and Africa's agenda, that is the Agenda 2063, then we must finance local governance with the seriousness they deserve, because only then are we going to attain this. So every kwacha, every rand, every shilling that is collected locally brings government closer to the people. So if we want to go far again, if you want to go fast, you should go alone. But if we want to go very far, we need to go together, and we should work together, the national government as well as local government, partners, citizens, to build an Africa where councils are not begging for resources, but collecting them confidently and using them transparently and accountable to their people. Only then can decentralization be not just a policy, but a living promise to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor. We once brought the mayor from Uganda to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. So we said, Mayor, you only got 20 minutes to make your presentation. And when he stood, he said, you guys, I came from Kampala, went to Kenya, Nairobi, overnight, traveled from Nairobi to Harare, then waited another overnight from Harare to Victoria Falls. It took me 4 days. Now I come here, you tell me that you want me to speak for 20 minutes. You sit down and listen to me. And he spoke until he finished. And it needed 2 hours. So sometimes we have to understand that we bring people that far to give them 10 minutes. It might be very difficult, and particularly politicians for that matter. We were supposed to have another session on debt financing, but I think we have had the South African context from the mayor of Cape Town, how local authorities can manage their debt, how they can improve their credit worthiness, as a way of improving other sources of finance apart from own sources of revenue. Because we got 2 budgets, the capital budget and the operational budget. Sometimes it's very difficult to fund capital budget from the own sources of revenue. We borrow and then finance that capital. When we borrow, that's the concept in local government that we call the revenue contribution to capital outlay, that we lay out the capital and then the revenue that we are collecting is then able to finance that capital base. So local authorities have to really look into those options. And I know it's an issue that you may deal with over the 2 weeks on how central government controls the borrowing. The credit worthiness of a country affects the credit worthiness of all institutions under that. And the debt of government is also considered as the debt that local authorities accumulate is also considered as national debt. So it might be there's need for a proper framework to govern the borrowing powers and the credit worthiness of both national level and local level in order to enhance capital development. We are seeing that in Zimbabwe, because of the challenges in securing international financing, most of the capital projects are being funded from the budget, the operational budget, and it's very difficult. Because once you fund a major capital project, it then affects services delivery so much, because capital projects get money out a lot. So there is need for us to look into borrowing as a way of financing capital development within our cities and then collect enough revenue to pay back the finance, which is what we call the revenue contribution to capital outlay. I thank you very much. Let me leave this opportunity to have 1 or 2 questions to clarify. If you don't have, don't ask. You see, it's not mandatory. We are not going to put a professor, a doc, you are not going to mark them on contribution, isn't it? So there are no marks for contribution. So if you don't have a critical question, don't, because it doesn't add any marks on you. So let's just have critical questions. Thank you very much. Yes, madam.
Hi, I was just wondering, what inspired the development?
You can take notes.
The adoption of it. What they have.
I think the mic is on. Yeah, please.
So that we can hear.
I was just wondering what led up to the adoption of the development fund? What inspired it?
Thank you so much, Mayors. I have two questions to both of you. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mayor from Mutale City, for the transformation that you did. So my question is, how has this transformation translated to improve services to the Mutale people? And how is it aligned to the development priorities of the people in Mutale? And to Madam, your name again, I don't want to mention it, but because I might, mistakenly pronounce it. You have really shared good stories about Zambia, and I'm personally impressed. Again, with sustainable development, the purpose of decentralization is to see the development that is people-centered. Given that you're both citizen representatives, how are you again ensuring that the accountability in the revenue collection, the allocation of the resources, the management is used in a way that the citizens get to enjoy the services, and not just the services, but rather the quality services? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the wonderful presentations from both Zambia and Zimbabwe. I wanted to find out if, in your cases, you come across seeded revenue. In our case in Malawi, seeded revenue is considered as non-tax revenue that local authorities or agents of the government collect in a local authority area, but this money is transferred direct to the central government with the hope that it will be redistributed to local authorities. So it's one area that is very controversial there, because the local councils feel they are shortchanged because they don't seem to get back that money, because government says, we already give you these transfers, why do you particularly want this type of resource to come back to you? In the same vein, do you have situations where such money maybe is just collected by the local authority and is kept at the local authority level? An example would be if you have a local authority that has a mine, so maybe the fees and some of the revenue that come from that mine in that particular local authority, does it go straight to the local authority or it goes to the central government? Thank you.
We have, I think, the lady and the gentleman raise their hands, but then we can have the mayors respond. Yep.
I want to ask first the mayor from Zimbabwe to say, in terms of your revenue collection, where you increased it from 30% to about 70%, I know you alluded to digitalization as part of the reasons, but I wanted you to just elaborate more on the steps that you took to ensure that you do get that revenue income, because I'm talking from the context of South Africa, that there's so many municipalities that are already digitalized, but they're still struggling with revenue collection. So we'd like to learn from your lessons to see what else can we do to improve the revenue collection. And then the other thing is in terms of waste management. You mentioned you had 3 trucks, I don't know, were they 14 or 40 now?
14.
14. Yes. Does the local government own those trucks, or are you subcontracting them? And are you also considering other technologically advanced ways of waste management instead of just collecting waste through compactors?
The gentleman, then we can have responses. I know.
Thank you so much. Mine is just 2 quick ones. Firstly, to the mayor of, is it Ganchibia? You spoke of registration of business. So my question is, How does the municipality guard against municipal officials making business with the municipality, the issue of conflict of interest? And then lastly, with regards to demographical representation, Mayor of Matare, when I went to your website, I see that you are a councillor of Ward 17. So what I want to check is in terms of demographical representation, I see the municipality as a quota, 90 gentlemen, 6 females in terms of councillors. There's a 30% quota. Why is it like that? And then lastly, both mayors, what is your country's views on councillors having qualifications? This is just a lighter one. Thank you.
I'll give them the chance. I want to answer the last question on the issue of the quota system. It's across all local authorities, it's not just military. The quota system was a work that COGF, Gender Links, and sponsored, that we got. There was significant reduction in women representation in all local authorities, with some local authorities having 0% representation of women, because the electoral system is very rigorous and very challenging. Sometimes women don't want to, and violent in Africa. So sometimes women don't want to participate. Yet there are issues that women must, that are better articulated by women in council. So me being a man, there are some things that I don't understand. If you ask me how painful is childbirth, I might just be lying to you, isn't it? So you better ask the person who understands that. So there's a lot of issues. So we worked with the Ministry of Local Government and other stakeholders to push for better representation as a temporary measure. So we sponsored a constitutional amendment to allow for a 30% representation for women, which means we can have 30% of women who are not elected, who are just appointed by their political parties, to make sure that the council chambers have women in them, guaranteed percentage of women. Because if you look at the recent elections, there was some local authorities which did not elect women, but now they have women in their councils because of that code. It's a temporary arrangement which will be looked into, but whether it's working or it's not working, it will then have to be assessed. The problem is sometimes we create those policy environments and leave them to politicians to manage. And you know, sometimes chaos is created by that process, that who manages the policy intervention would affect the results of that policy. I will leave them to answer everything else.
Thank you. We got a question on what inspired or motivated the creation of the Constituency Development Fund. So in Zambia, the Constituency Development Fund was started in the year 1995, when members of parliament felt like every time they went back to their constituencies, people demanded certain services from them, and they did not have the financial muscle to attend to the needs of their people. So then there was a small amount that was allocated to the office of the Member of Parliament, that then he could sit down with his community members and agree what kind of development they needed, and then it was enacted in Parliament, and that's how he started. And then over the years, it has been there, but then in the year 2022, it was increased by over 1,600%. Yes, it was. We saw a huge shift. So this was 1.6 million kwacha is about, I need help. Can you convert it to dollars? I want you to understand, so I give the context to it. Yes, so it was about, we used to receive, constituencies then used to receive about $6,000. And then we saw a shift to now almost $2 million. So that's a lot of money. So with the increment, it's also brought about new guidelines. So new guidelines were enacted and they were passed, and now it's changed almost the face of the Constituency Development Fund, because previously it was almost money that was just managed by the Member of Parliament. But with the huge increment, it's not possible for one person to manage that money. So it's also now brought on board and strengthened it's strengthened the organizations that were already in place, institutions that were already in place, and it's also strengthened decentralization, because we've always had what we call the ward development committees in Zambia. But then previously, yeah, they were part of development, but not as much. But with the increment of the Constituency Development Fund, it's almost impossible for the Constituency Development Committee to do anything without the ward development committees. So it has strengthened the communities, because through the CDF, we call it CDF, the community now has a voice and a right to say exactly what kind of development they want in an area. And we have forms that they write and they request. Right now we are working around going digital, where they'll just be putting it online and then all of us will have access to see it. But right now we have 5 forms through the CDF committee. We have a community project form, we're giving out loans and grants, we have skills and bursaries as well. But then what this fund has done is that it has strengthened the decentralization, because it starts from zone level. The representative at zone level requests what they want, it goes to the ward, where they now select a priority project at ward level. So by the time it's going to the Constituency Development Committee, the ward have already chosen to say, in this area, what we lack is a school or it's a hospital. So using our money this year, you need to build us a hospital. The community has no right or whatsoever to change the community project that has been requested. All they need to do now is approve that project. If there is money remaining, then maybe they give them another project. And then of course now it's finally approved at a provincial level from the provincial local government officer. So it is a fund that it's definitely, I should mention that it has tremendously increased decentralization, and now people know what projects they want, and as a local authority, ours is to make sure that once this is approved, the implementation is done. So we are the implementing agency in CDF. So we're the ones that are doing giving the contractors and making sure that the projects are done in good time and that the money is spent where it's supposed to be spent. So that is our role mostly, and also technical advisor to the CDF committee, how much money can be allocated to this project. So that is our role under CDF. But I think that was the reasoning behind why it was implemented, but now it's become almost a community fund. I feel maybe eventually in the near future the name should change, because it's almost now being managed as a community fund at constituency level. And then maybe to just, let me answer and then I give it to him so that so there was a question on SDGs and allocation of fund. But before I answer that one, let me talk about the untaxed revenue. We have the same in Zambia actually. I think all revenues in every country, I want to believe including South Africa, is collected through provinces, through districts, at ground level. The money that central government makes is money that is coming from different entities. Like in Zambia, our biggest revenue base is the mines, because I think we export a lot of copper, and that's why we get a lot of revenue. That money is not local authority money, it is government money. And that is, I think, part of the money where we are saying we receive part of our shares. However, in various districts, we have what we call levies. So every district, especially the mining districts, they can levy the mines. But also the most that we are getting from mines or industries that have set in our areas is away from the levy. It's the corporate social responsibilities. But then now you can't put an amount to that. We're almost at the charity of the investors rather. But the tax itself goes to central government. So it's the same thing as Malawi. We wait to receive our share. Once government collects, they put in one big bowl, and now they begin to share. And then there was a question on business registration and conflict of interest with employees. So the businesses we are talking of, the small business, the shop owners, but I'll answer your question as well. The ones that we did as a local authority, we made sure that every shop in Kanchiria was legally registered. And then now we began to find them the licenses, the levies, because they didn't even have the registration, the license, the PACRA registration to do business in the district. So what we needed to do was close them. But then if we close them, it means we lose out money. So we brought people to register these businesses. But what we also did is we encouraged the youth to open companies that then now they get contracts from the local authority. So you're very right. I mean, workers can always take advantage, but then the law doesn't allow. So if an employee is found wanting, they're actually jailed. The law around government workers getting government contracts is actually very serious. So if they're found wanting, the name is on that contract, and I don't think someone can actually be that down to do that. So as Kanchiria, we're not having a situation where we have employees engaging themselves in getting contract. We've not received any case, or I've not heard anyone do that. But if they did that, they would absolutely be arrested and they would be fired instantly. The issue of councillors having qualification, I'll be very honest, I think I'm sitting here because our government passed say that for one to stand as a councillor in my country, one needed the lowest qualification of a grade 12. That's like a Form 5. And hence, I'm sitting here right now because I had that qualification. I don't think if I had that qualification, I would even sit in this room. Because I'm not shy to say that leadership back at home in most communities has a face of an elderly man who has a lot of money. And it doesn't matter whether we only have elderly man in one room. We don't have the quota system like in Zimbabwe. So you go on the ballot and you compete. And oftenly, I want to believe buying votes is an African thing, it's not a Zambian thing. Across Africa, people are voting during elections. Young people, women, our biggest challenge is finances. So if you put a prerequisite of qualification, then you're giving a youth a voice. So for me, if honestly I had the power to even increase it, 100% do so, because not only is it going to bring efficiency to the local authorities, you can't have somebody who doesn't even have basic understanding of even just local governance itself run a local authority. Because then what do you expect them to do in these offices? You need someone to have the basic understanding. I know there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge, but knowledge is also very important if we're going to take our country to a better place. If we want to develop, we need to have knowledgeable leaders who are not just going to represent our communities and speak for our communities, but also understand governance systems and respect governance systems. I think that's the only way we can also fight corruption. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Find out we've eaten into other people's time, so.
Okay, thank you. I will answer mainly the question that we asked about Mutare. You asked how did the transformation change the lives of the people of Mutare? It changed in a number of ways. The first that I would want to allude to is the creating of a more democratic space after elections, because in most areas people only get to participate in the affairs of their land when they vote in or vote out people at elections. So our transformation is also created space for citizen participation in the governance of their local authority, and that to me, it actually changed the lives of the people of Mutare. Secondly, the confidence that which they now have, and the sense of ownership. If you talk to Mutare, you would not travel with the Mutare and you would not boast about their nice water, sweet water. You will not also travel in Zimbabwe with the Mutare and they will not boast about their smart streets. So it has changed. I can go on and on and on. It has changed the lives of the people from Mutare in many ways. Our council is also now running the best primary schools in the city. You see, the pass rate at our schools is much better than even private schools. Then I also want to move into the question that was asked about steps that we have taken to make sure that the digitalization leads to improved or efficient revenue collection. We've actually created the modules to make sure that informed by data, so that if we have a meter reader operating in a certain area, we already know the average number of cars that park in that area. So the supervisors are able to track whether that person was doing his work well or not. We've also been able to eliminate or reduce diversion of funds, because before digitalization, some people would collect, they were able to have their own, print their own manual receipts. So all the money that is now being collected will be on a digitalized receipt, which a person cannot produce on their own. We've also made sure that for most of the things that of the processes that take place are digital. That is in terms of the collection, the issuing of receipts, and the accounting itself. And we also backed this with policies and standard operating procedures that are clearly defined, that each person, is, they go to their work post, they to operate following those standard operating procedures, which are auditable and traceable. Then there's a question that was asked on the 14 refuse trucks. Yes, they are owned by the city of Mutare. Would, of course, want to explore the issues of privatization, but the environment in Zimbabwe doesn't allow that. And in our consultations, our residents in Mutare, they are not willing at this moment to have that sector privatized, especially as they are learning from the exorbitant charges that private players in cities where the authorities had opened this space to private players, mainly which is or may be manipulated by powerful people. So currently, the people of Mutare wish to have their solid waste management run by their city. So we own all of those trucks. We are aware of modern ways of dealing with waste, but of course we are limited by our capacity. You know, the environment in Zimbabwe is such that we cannot borrow international funds, and our system of getting borrowing powers is also regulated at national level, and currently we are not allowed to borrow for more than 2 years. So you can imagine the funds that are required to have a modernized maybe a refuse processing facility versus a loan that you can take and repay in 2 years. Then about qualifications, my view is that Africa should have adopted that a long time ago. If you see much of the failure that is synonymous with African cities, you would think that we are a caste continent, yet we are not. We are simply deciding that we do not want to put standards in the things that we do. Especially the people whom we want to lead us, we don't want to put a standard. We believe anyone, because he was created in the image of God, can lead. So we fail on that day that we go home ululating and partying because the person whom we voted is successfully won an election, but yet that is the beginning of failure. So I truly believe that we should, to lighten the load on leadership, we cannot be led by people who cannot see. We can also not be led by people whose capacity is below us, and they cannot lead even their staff, because the staff is recruited based on merit, on qualifications. How can you then lead someone who is more knowledgeable than you? So it's something that we should have started maybe 30 or 40 years ago, or even before I was born. Probably will be somewhere, because we are a country that we are a nation, a continent that is heavily endowed with wealth from God. All we just need is the right minds, the correct level of capacity in order for us to overtake all those other continents that are ahead of us. Because what they have only is the human resource. They don't, and us as Africans, we have the human resource, we also have the mineral wealth, we have a beautiful land, we have sunshine, we have water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm having chess people. So what we are going to do is, I understand there is a reception later in the evening. We are going to take over that reception. While you are eating, we are going to continue with our presentations with the mayor. So we will continue in the evening while you are having drinks and whatever they eat. Thank you very much. This is just a brief of what we could have laid out, but I think it has helped you in understanding that there are a lot of interventions that are being done, but that also needs to be done and enhanced. So I think the knowledge that you are getting here would help you drive your local authorities. Up to now, whenever I'm making a presentation, whenever I'm doing something, I have my ASD file on my computer. I make reference to those notes. And this is real. Whenever I'm doing something, I make reference to my ASD files because it helped me a lot. I hope you are going to take this session and this school seriously. And definitely learning from me, it will help you a lot. I thank you.
Can you give another round of applause? Thank you so much to the mayors and to Leo for that conversations on giving a practical and a political perspective to the issue of finances. When the mayor from Zimbabwe was, the city of Mutare was speaking, he said that people and residents from Mutare are very proud of the city. Their water is sweet. And I was wondering whether they ate sugar to eat or what is the case. But I think it's a testament of the good things that are happening in the city of Mutare. As for Zambia, I had a very controversial question, but I thought, okay, let me restrict myself. But since I'm also facilitating, let me abuse my role. There's a bill in Zambia right now that seeks to extend or remove the limitation of term of office for mayors. So the law currently says that you can be a mayor for 2 terms, and there's a draft bill that says you can be there as long as you want, as long as people want you. So this is a question for us who are proponents of decentralization or devolution that makes us a little bit worried to say, we thought we were making progress, are we not going behind a little bit? So I won't ask the mayor from Zambia to comment on that. Maybe we can comment during that cocktail. Maybe we can have that discussion. And also let me take this opportunity to thank the audience online that has been with us since morning and this afternoon. That will also bring an end to our online streaming of the opening session. I also have with me here just our appreciation from the ASD team, from the university. These are ASD t-shirts. So I believe that once you've been part of the ASD, you will always be part of the ASD, and you are now our brand and ambassadors. And I will hand over these t-shirts to you that you can hopefully wear with pride in Mutare, Zambia. And maybe just the last part is to take a photo of you, the mayors, and then Leo, and then we are done with this session.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the t-shirt. You guessed correctly that our wardrobes were very thin. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So what we are going to take